The morning I found out my best friend was pregnant with my fiancé's baby, I was standing in my kitchen making her a cup of tea. She had shown up at my door crying, mascara running down her face, hands shaking like she was cold, even though it was the middle of July. I pulled her inside. I wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. I told her whatever it was, we would get through it together. Because that is what we always said to each other. That is what 15 years of friendship looks like. You show up, you make the tea, you say together. She sat across from me at the kitchen table where she had sat 100 times before. She looked down at her hands, and then she said the words that would split my entire life in two. Maya, the baby is Daniel's. I remember the sound of the kettle clicking off. I remember the way the steam kept rising even after everything had gone quiet. I remember thinking, no, she means someone else named Daniel, because there was no version of reality where my best friend, my maid of honor, the woman who helped me pick out my wedding dress 3 months ago, could be sitting in my kitchen telling me she was carrying my fiancé's child. But she was. And what happened next, what unraveled over the following weeks, was something none of us could have predicted. Not me, not Daniel, not even her. Because the truth, when it finally came out whole, was so much bigger and so much stranger than any of us were prepared for. And it started with a DNA test that changed absolutely everything. Stay with me, because this story is about betrayal, yes, but it is also about secrets that go back further than I ever knew. And it is about the moment you realize the life you thought you were living was never quite what it seemed. My name is Maya. I grew up in a small town in Ohio where everybody knew everybody, which sounds warm and lovely until you realize it also means nobody ever really gets to start over. I was the kind of girl who worked hard, kept her head down, and believed deeply that if you were kind to people and loyal to the ones you loved, the world would be kind back. I met Daniel in college. He was studying engineering. I was studying nursing. We were at a mutual friend's birthday dinner, and he spilled red wine on my sleeve and spent the next 20 minutes apologizing and trying to dab it with napkins until I started laughing so hard I couldn't be upset anymore. He was like that, earnest to the point of being clumsy, but so genuinely warm that you forgave him everything almost immediately. We dated for 4 years. He proposed on a Tuesday of all days, not some grand romantic gesture, but over takeout on the couch because he said he couldn't wait for the weekend. He said he had been carrying the ring around for 2 weeks, and every time he looked at me, he almost did it, and he just couldn't hold it in anymore. I said yes before he finished the sentence. We set the wedding for 14 months out, a September ceremony, small, meaningful, hours. And then there was Priya. Priya had been my best friend since we were 9 years old. We met on the first day of 4th grade when she moved from Michigan and didn't know anyone, and I sat next to her at lunch because she looked like she was trying very hard not to cry. We had been inseparable ever since, through her parents' divorce, through my mother's illness, through every heartbreak, every job loss, every 2 a.m. phone call. Priya was the person I called before I called anyone else. She was the first person I told when Daniel proposed. She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. She was beautiful in a way that always turned heads. Tall, dark-haired, effortlessly put together. She was also brilliant, working as a graphic designer with her own small studio. She had dated a few people over the years, nothing too serious, and I had always secretly thought she was just waiting for the right person. What I did not know, what I had no reason to suspect, was that somewhere along the way, she had decided that person was Daniel. I do not know exactly when it started. I have gone over it 1,000 times in my mind, replaying every dinner, every gathering, every moment the three of us were together. I look for the signs I missed, and they were there. Small things. The way she laughed a little too easily at his jokes, the way he sometimes texted her about things he hadn't mentioned to me. I told myself it was nothing. They were both people I loved. Of course they would grow close. Of course they would become friends. I never imagined they had become anything more. The morning Priya came to my door was a Saturday in late April. Daniel was out of town for a work conference, or so I believed. He had been traveling more than usual those last few months, and I had chalked it up to a busy season at his firm. I was a little lonely, but I was not suspicious. I trusted him completely. When Priya sat down and told me the baby was Daniel's, my first reaction was not anger. It was this strange, hollow disbelief, like the floor had dropped out from under me, but I hadn't fallen yet. I just stood there holding 2 mugs of tea, and I asked her very quietly to repeat herself. She did. She told me it had started 8 months ago, a night Daniel had supposedly been working late. She had run into him at a bar near her studio. They had both been stressed and a little lonely in their own ways, and one thing had led to another. She said it was supposed to be one time. She said she hated herself immediately. She said she tried to end it, but Daniel kept reaching out, and she was weak, and she knew that was not an excuse. She knew there was no excuse. I set both mugs down very carefully on the counter. I was afraid if I didn't do it carefully, I would throw them. "How long?" I said. 8 months, she whispered. 8 months. Our wedding was 12 weeks away. Invitations had already gone out. The venue was booked. My dress was altered and hanging in my mother's closet because she had a bigger house, and I didn't want to risk seeing it every day and somehow diminishing the magic of it. I asked her to leave. She tried to talk. I asked her again. And then I sat down on my kitchen floor, just sat down right there on the tile, and I stayed there for a very long time. I called Daniel that afternoon. He answered on the second ring. I told him I knew. There was a long silence, and then he said, "Maya, I can explain. But there is a specific kind of heartbreak that comes not from the words someone says, but from the fact that they don't deny it." He didn't deny it, he just said he could explain. And somehow, that was the worst part. He came home that evening. We sat in the living room, and he talked for a long time, and I listened. And none of what he said made it make sense, because nothing could make it make sense. He said he loved me. He said he had made an enormous mistake. He said he did not know what he wanted anymore, and he was ashamed of himself. He asked me if we could work through it. I told him I needed time to think. He moved into a hotel. The weeks that followed were the worst of my life. I went to work, I came home, I did not tell my family what had happened because I could not bear the look I knew I would see on my mother's face, that particular combination of sorrow and "I told you so" that mothers sometimes carry even when they never actually said it out loud. I told one person, my coworker and friend Janine, who brought me soup and sat with me and said very little, but was simply there, which was exactly what I needed. The wedding date passed from 12 weeks away to 10. I had to make decisions about vendors and deposits. The practical cruelty of heartbreak is that it does not pause the logistics of your life. And then something happened that I did not expect. Priya called me. Not to apologize again. She had apologized so many times by that point the word had lost its shape. She called because she had taken a paternity test. She had done it on her own, quietly, at a clinic. She had the results. "Maya," she said, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen to the whole thing before you say anything." I almost hung up. I almost said there's nothing left you could tell me that would change what you did. But something made me stay on the line. Some instinct, some small, quiet voice that said, "Wait." She told me the DNA results had come back. Daniel was not the father. I did not understand. I told her that made no sense. She had told me, she had sat in my kitchen and told me that Daniel was the father of her baby. How could the test say otherwise? And then she said something that made the entire room tilt sideways. "There's something else in the results, Maya. Something about Daniel. Something that involves you." Priya asked if she could come over. I said yes. I don't know why. Maybe because I had run out of ways to feel, and I needed to understand what she was trying to tell me. She came over that evening. She sat in the same chair she had sat in before. She put a folder on the table between us. She explained that the paternity test clinic had offered an extended DNA profile, the kind that checks for genetic relatives in a database. It was a newer service, more comprehensive. She had agreed to it without thinking much about it. And when the results came back, there was a flag, a genetic connection that the system had detected, not to her, to Daniel. She had done more research after that. She had made calls, she had spoken to a genetic counselor. Daniel had a half-sibling he didn't know about. That half-sibling was me. I stared at her. I could hear my own breathing. I said, "That's not possible." I said it several more times. Priya opened the folder and laid the documents out, and I looked at the numbers and percentages. And I am a nurse. I understand genetics enough to know what a half-sibling marker looks like, and it was there in black and white. My mother had never told me who my biological father was. She said he was someone who hadn't stayed. She gave me a name I had never been able to find. I had stopped looking years ago. Daniel's father I had met only twice. He was a quiet, somewhat distant man who lived in another state. Daniel didn't have a close relationship with him. Daniel's parents had divorced when he was young, and his father had mostly stayed away. I called my mother that night. I asked her, flat out, to tell me his name, his real name. There was a silence that lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. And then she told me. It was the same name as Daniel's father. I sat in my car in her driveway for 40 minutes before I could walk inside. When I did, my mother was already crying. She told me she had met him when she was very young, before he was married, before any of it, and she had not known about the other family until years later, and by then, Daniel was just a name she had never connected to anything real. She had never known. She swore she had never known. I believed her. I could see it on her face. Not guilt, but genuine horror. The horror of someone who had been living peacefully next to a truth she never knew was there. I drove to Daniel's hotel. I sat in the lobby and I texted him and I said, "I need to talk to you and it cannot wait." He came downstairs in 10 minutes. We sat in 2 chairs by the window. I put the documents on the table between us the same way Priya had put them in front of me. I watched his face as he read. He went completely white. Neither of us spoke for a very long time. There was nothing to say that felt like enough. We were not just 2 people who had broken each other's hearts. We were 2 people who had unknowingly shared a father. 2 people who had almost walked down an aisle together without ever knowing what connected us. The affair, the pregnancy, the test, all of it had happened for painful and human and inexcusable reasons. But it had led to a discovery that would have remained buried otherwise, and now we both had to figure out how to carry it. Daniel called his father that night. I don't know what was said. He texted me at midnight. "He knew about you. He's known for years." That, somehow, was the part that broke me open completely. The wedding was canceled. That part was simple in the end because there was no version of the future where we could have gone forward. We were not a couple anymore. We were something much stranger and harder to name. 2 people bound by blood, neither of us had chosen, trying to make sense of a life that had been built on an incomplete foundation. Daniel and I did not speak for about 2 months after that night. There was too much grief and confusion and the particular complicated anger of someone who has been wronged, but who has also, in another way, wronged you back. And sorting all of that out takes time. When we finally did meet, coffee, neutral ground, a cafe neither of us had been to before, it was quieter than I expected. We talked for 2 hours, about our fathers, about our mothers, about what it means to discover that someone you thought you knew is also a stranger. We did not resolve everything, we didn't pretend we could, but we agreed, without saying it dramatically, that we were not enemies. We were 2 confused people who had hurt each other and now shared an inheritance neither of us had asked for. Priya was harder. For a long time, I could not think about her with that sharp, searing heat behind my sternum that I could only call fury. She had betrayed me. That was real. That was not erased by DNA tests or complicated revelations. She had made choices that nearly destroyed me. But she had also been the one to make the call. She had been the one to sit back down across from me and put the folder on the table even though she was terrified. She could have stayed silent. She could have let me walk into a marriage that science was already trying to warn us against. She didn't. I don't know what to call that. I don't know if it counts as courage when the person was also the one who created the crisis. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. Maybe that is something I will be turning over for years. We are not friends the way we used to be. I don't know if we ever will be again, but we have spoken. Carefully, honestly, painfully. She had her baby, a little girl, healthy, and the biological father turned out to be someone she had briefly dated before any of this, a detail that still makes the whole story feel almost impossibly tangled. She is raising her alone for now, and I hear through mutual people that she's doing all right. As for me, I took some time. I moved to a different apartment, I picked up extra shifts at work, and then I cut back and took a week off and went to see a therapist, which I should have done years before any of this happened. I called my mother more. I let her into the parts of my life I had been too proud to share. I also, slowly, started to look into my biological father. Not to confront him, not to demand anything, but because I realized I had spent my whole life building a story on a gap in the middle, and I was tired of not knowing the shape of the whole thing. It is October now. The leaves are turning. September came and went without a wedding, without the dress, without any of the things I had imagined when I was a different version of myself standing in that bridal shop saying yes to everything that sparkled. I am okay. More than okay some days. I think about what it means that a lie led to a truth, that a betrayal led to a revelation, that the worst thing that ever happened to me is also the reason I now know something fundamental and real about who I am. I do not think I would choose it again. I do not think it was worth the cost. But it happened, and I am still standing, and there is something in that worth holding on to. Someone told me once that the truth has a way of finding the surface no matter how deep you bury it. I didn't believe that when I heard it. It sounded like something people say to comfort themselves. But I believe it now. And if you are sitting somewhere right now holding a secret about yourself, about someone you love, about something that happened that you never found the words for, I want you to know that the uncovering, as terrifying as it is sometimes the beginning of the only real life you were ever going to be able to live. Mine started on a Saturday morning in July, over 2 cups of tea that went cold on the counter, and I am still figuring out where it goes from here. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the hardest truths are sometimes the ones that finally set you free.